There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the first Mind Your Fucking Business of 2024 with your host, Jeffrey Klinsman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Fucking Business podcast brought to you by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project as well as DraftKings. We thank them both for their sponsorship. If you go onto the bamboozleproject.com, you can shop through any MYPB gear you want. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20%. And you'll be on your way with a nice savings. So if you spent a lot of money on the holidays, yes, you want to say something? Or
it's going to snow, you might want to get the winter hat.
The winter hat, yes. If you are in the Northeast, we may get some white stuff for the first time in 2 years over the weekend. This is episode 137, Ciento Treinta y Siete. So we welcome those who are listening to the show. I was in Mexico last week, and I didn't get to use any of the Spanish that I could have because I don't speak it except when I do the announcements of the episode numbers. So this is episode 137. Again, we welcome those people using the SAP feature. You can send us your questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com. You can also DM us on the Instagram platform. We are very responsive there. I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but certainly 7 days a week and multiple times a day. Yes, we do sleep at some point. You can listen to the show. If you want to follow along live and put in your comments, you can do so on YouTube, and we'll take some comments as we already see that you guys are already firing away today. You can also listen to the show, stream it in your car at any time, or your ear pods or whatever you want to call them while you're out running, doing your New Year's resolution of being healthy. And you can do that via the platforms of iTunes and Spotify. And also, we should mention, if your plans in 2024 are to go to any sporting event, concert, theater ticket, theater, whatever it may be, go on to SeatGeek and get your tickets and use promo code MYPB, and we save you $20 off your order just by using those four.
That's awesome.
You can buy yourself a knish that you save with the $20. Or in our executive producers situation, you can buy chicken fingers at Nassau Coliseum that you had to wait an hour for. So first off, right off the top, Happy New Year. We hope everybody had a good holiday season. B-Rock and I were talking before you came in today to the studios that like you get to the point at the end of the holidays, like, you know, first off, the week between Christmas and New Year's, no one knows what day of the week it is, right? It's a very bizarre week. Like you don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. No one really does anything. Again, I happen to be out of the country, but now it's like you want to get back at it, right? You had your holiday thing. If that's your jam, which is not for me, but if that's your jam, I would like to think by now you've had enough. Let's get back to business here.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think Friday should be that. I think that we should just, if New Year's is on a Monday, that whole week should just be like.
Well, you'll be happy to know that with the leap year, next year, New Year's will be on a Wednesday.
Yeah. So Thursday and Friday should be the extra. Okay. That whole week, that New Year's week. Because if you want to start the week, if you want to start the year off right, you need to be well rested. And I think you should have that New Year's week of family celebrations. Then the next Monday.
Would you like to take a guess who didn't start the New Year's right?
There's people in mind, but I don't know if I could say them on live.
How about this? I'm referring to a hockey team.
The Rangers.
Whoa, there you go.
That was a hard one.
All right, before we get to that, so when we were off last week, we came on the morning after the Toronto game in Toronto, which was, we talked about and we loved everything about that game because it was a response. The Rangers were annoyed a week prior. Toronto came into the Garden, beat them pretty bad. The Rangers went up and played a good game. And we said, look, you have home games coming up versus Edmonton and Buffalo before you go into and I use quotes here, holiday break, as the NHL calls it, and try and, go into the break feeling good.
Yeah.
The Edmonton game, now we'd put a poll up that I guess it was that Thursday, and we tried to have people predict, let's be Peter Laviolette. Are you one of those games is going to be Igor Shesterkin? One of those games is going to be Jonathan Quick. How would you do it? And the majority was, and I was of this nature, that they would play Igor versus Edmonton and Quick versus Buffalo. Peter Laviolette doesn't care what we think, apparently, and did the complete opposite. So that game versus Edmonton, the Rangers had a 1-0 lead going into the third period. Jonathan Quick was playing out of his mind, especially in the second period there, and then it completely all fell apart, and they lost 4-3. They were down 4-1. They let up 4 quick goals. They came back to make it interesting and still lost 4-3. Then it also kind of put like I don't want to say put more importance on the next night, because that wouldn't be fair to say. Every game really counts the same, but you kind of really wanted to play well versus Buffalo because you were annoyed you just lost versus Edmonton. You had this last game before you go into the holiday break, and the Rangers end up winning that game in overtime on a Chris Kreider goal where Igor played well. And so the Rangers then went into the holiday break. They played Washington at home last Wednesday. Now, I was down in Mexico, and to no surprise, they do not show Ranger games down in Mexico.
Wow.
I wasn't in like Cancun, maybe in like a city like Cancun, which is so Americanized, you would see it. That's not where I was. So where I was, like, if I tried to find the Ranger game on any sort of communication, like TV down there, I would have struck out. So I was following online. I know they won. It seems like they played well. I know Washington got the first goal, but it seems like the Rangers were in control the whole game. Jacob Trouba got hurt. Thankfully, that was a minor thing, and it was not anything Tom Wilson did. If you saw the play, they kind of just collided. So the Rangers win there, and they go south to play Florida and Tampa. Now, the Florida game, again, I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't see it. We landed at the airport, at Newark Airport on Friday night at 7:10, and when you're dealing with customs and 2 kids and trying to get your car, I didn't see it. I did go back and watch the recap and everything. I saw they lost. It seemed to me they were sloppy, like especially the first half of the game, like they just didn't play great. Again, Jonathan Quick with a crazy save. Like if you look in the first period, he had a save, which could have been the save of the year. But they go on to lose. So now you go into Tampa on Saturday night. Now it's a back-to-back for the Rangers. And the Rangers somehow going into that game, they showed this stat, which I thought was amazing. It was their 6th back-to-back of the year, and they were 5-0 in the second half of back-to-backs, which is incredible. And you're playing a Tampa team that did not play the night before. So you are going to be gassed, and the other team is not in the same situation as you. And that was a very enjoyable Ranger game to watch. Panarin scores early. Artemi Panarin ends up getting a hat trick with 2 late goals in the third period. And the Rangers play really well. And Igor, again, plays well. Now, you take those vibes and you play last night at home versus Carolina, and just there's nothing to take out of this game positive for me at all. Yeah. I'm not going to go crazy about it, because what this team has shown you, if you look at the Nashville game back in October, if you look at the Toronto game at home back in December, what you are seeing is that this team is showing a way to respond. So they are constantly showing you that they bounce back. So until they show that they're not going to bounce back for a game, I can't get on the Carolina thing. I would expect tomorrow night, knowing this team and Chicago coming in, who's not playing overly well, I would expect the Rangers to respond tomorrow night. I really would.
Now, there's a lot to unpack there. I don't want to go too far back, but the goalie situation, I feel like we're in good shape here. And correct me if I'm wrong. Now, in the past, your backup goalie would pick up a few games that weren't really important. I feel like with the situation you have now, you actually want to give him a couple games that are like good teams, so you can rest Igor, and God forbid you have another goalie who's equally as good, not equally as good. I don't want to start that whole debate, but like another goalie who can help you in the playoffs.
So Jonathan Quick, that's a great look at you, hockey maven over there. Jonathan Quick has earned the right to play against the good teams, right? I mean, when you look at it now, the game in Florida wasn't ideal. The Edmonton, if you take away those 10 minutes of the third period, wasn't great. But he's earned that right. And if you have a goalie that's competent, remember the goal here for the Rangers, every Ranger fan has the same goal, which is I want to win the cup, which means I'm playing hockey till June. You have to play hockey to June if that's what you're going to want to do. Where you can rest Igor along the way and be comfortable with someone else that you're putting in goal only helps you in the long term in May and June. Because as we all know, and this is not me being biased as a hockey fan, I've said this forever. Of the 4 major sports, the hardest trophy to win is the Stanley Cup. It's a 2-month grind, right? Football, no disrespect, we'll cover it in 20 minutes or 30 minutes from now. You got to win 3 or 4 games and you win the Super Bowl. That's it, right? And basketball, I guess, is similar, but it's not as physical. I mean, we know basketball with people flopping with fouls. And baseball now is you play 3 weeks and you're to win the World Series. So it's the hardest thing to win. So where you can get your goaltender getting rest, it does play dividends at the end of the game. Why don't we pull up that comment that just came in, and it's about the Panthers game. And the Panthers game may have been one of the few good losses we've had this year. I would agree with that. Now, again, Matthew, I didn't see the whole game. We were driving home from the airport. I did go back and watch most of it. I don't want to say I watched all of it. And I think you can make the argument. And the Panthers are not bad, right? I did watch. We got home with 5 minutes left in the third when they were down 4-3. And the Rangers certainly had some chances. Like, it seems to me like if you had a playoff series down the line in the spring where the Rangers played the Panthers, it would be a really exciting playoff series. It would probably kill you as a Ranger fan anxiety-wise. Like, I don't know that I'd be able to sit through that. You'd have to find either alcohol or whatever your choice is. But yeah, you would be in a situation for sure where it would be a good series. But yeah, you could say it was a good loss. So in that Florida trip, aside from the Florida game, the Tampa game, one thing I want to illustrate here, because it needs to be talked about, and it is being talked about, but it's not being talked about enough, is the season that Artemi Panarin continues to have. Artemi Panarin has played 36 games so far this season, Dougie Sticks. If you had to guess, and I obviously kind of gave you a clue because we're talking about it, how many points do you think Artemi Panarin
36
has?
games?
Yeah.
I would say at least 50.
Well, you are right on the money there. He has 51. He has 20. Look at you. I mean, you are on fire today. I don't know what you did in our week
practice
off.
this. I didn't cheat.
I didn't even talk to you in the week off.
I didn't cheat.
I don't know what you were doing. You took a crash course in Ranger hockey last week when we were off, man, and I was out of the country. So in 36 games, Artemi Panarin now has 51 points.
Nice.
That is, I mean, if you think about, well, you know what? Let's do the math.
I'm not surprised. I mean, he has good regular season numbers.
Well, there you go. See, you said it, right? So if you do some simple math here, in an 82 game season, he's on pace right now for 116.16 points. So he's on.
Is there a record in there somewhere?
That wouldn't be a record. I'm not sure what the record is, but I'm sure it's more than 116. But for him, it would be.
Nice.
And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. And I know people they don't like when I say this, but it's true. There has never been a Ranger free agent signing as good as Artemi Panarin ever.
Yeah.
I don't even, who else could you tell me from a free agent perspective that I'm not talking draft picks, and I don't want to even go there because that's not really a lot better either. But what free agent in the history of this franchise has been as good of a performer after they were signed of a free agent and has been that good now this is his 5th year? I mean, usually when the Rangers sign a free agent, Bobby Holik, I mean, we could go down the list. It doesn't necessarily Scott Gomez. Well, no, I guess Scott. I mean, something like that. Like, they don't usually equate to being good. This is like all world stuff. Now, to your point, in the playoffs, he's going to have to perform. And unfortunately for him, it's going to be like 2009 with the New York Yankees. I don't know if you remember this, because at the time, my wife and I had playoff tickets and we were really into the Yankees. You know, A-Rod had been this regular season performer galore, greatest of all time, everything, and couldn't do anything in the playoffs, and knew going into the 2009 playoffs that literally the spotlight is going to all be on him. And he delivered. No, he delivered. He had a great postseason, particularly that first round series versus the Twins, if I remember correctly, and carried them to winning the championship.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, all eyes are going to be in Panarin.
Right. Panarin, unfortunately for him, he can have as good of a regular season. Like, he can end up, let's say he ends up with 116 points, which is what he's on pace for right now, which would be ridiculous as it is. But if he then goes into the playoffs and the Rangers are out in the first round and he does nothing, that regular season will mean nothing. No one's going to care.
I mean, people have been talking about this. We've been talking about this for at least 2 years. And is that what your legacy wants to be? I mean, you know, when they do all those documentaries and they have those sports documentaries, do you want your legacy to be you can't perform in the playoffs?
Your legacy, though, as an
athlete,
pressure,
bro. No pressure.
But your legacy as an athlete in whatever sport you're in is in the postseason, right? Michael Jordan isn't remembered because of how good he was in the regular season. He's remembered because he won the title 6 times. All of these athletes are. If you look, this is painful for me to say, if you think of Henrik Lundqvist and you think of Dan Marino, right? 2 elite athletes. Like, I'm not talking like good athletes, elite Hall of Fame athletes, Henrik was first ballot. I'm assuming Dan Marino was too. But their legacy is, I don't want to say tarnished, but you do think of the fact that they never won the ultimate prize.
It's hard. And if you haven't won a championship in any sport, it's hard to get into the Hall of Fame. It's like a big prerequisite.
But your legacy, my point is, if you're Artemi Panarin, right?
Yeah.
You don't want your legacy to be, when you look back at him 10 or 15 years, you don't want my kids saying to someone, we had a player 10 or 15 years ago, Artemi Panarin, that guy was unbelievable from October to April, but then April came around and he disappeared. You don't want that.
I don't want that.
No. So it needs to be said again, how good of a regular season he has had, because it has been absolutely unbelievable. I wanted to talk about it, and then last night hurt this case. I wanted to talk about Igor, how much better he's been. Let's just pretend last night was not what it was.
Can't win every game.
He can't win every game, but he didn't play great. But it shows you what the games preceding this were the last 3 weeks. That anyone who was worried, and we put this debate up a couple of weeks ago, that anyone who was worried about him in terms of performing or not being the old Igor, he can be the old Igor.
I think we pressed the panic button too much.
Yeah.
Too quick for the panic button.
I would agree with that. And the Rangers, another stat that I saw the other day, which I think needs to be mentioned, which is, I'm not sure. Actually, if you're watching, and I'll call this out to Chris because I know he's commenting today. If this is a sign, you take this stat. So the Rangers are 11-1-1 in 1-goal games. Okay. So does that stat, I can look at it in a good or a bad way. How do I interpret this? Is it good that they're 11-1-1 in 1-goal games, meaning that they know how to play tight games and they find ways to win them? Or is it a bad stat to show you that all your games are close? You're not really blowing teams out. I don't know.
No, I don't. Well, it's not in the plus category because it's 50-50. It's coin flip. You're 11-11-1. Forget about the 1. You're 11-11 in 1-goal games.
Yeah.
That means 50% of the time you're going to win. You would want that to be more like 80 or 90%.
Which it is, because you're
11-11.
No. There are 11 wins and 1 loss.
Oh.
Right?
11-11-1.
No. 11-1.
Oh, okay.
1. So 11-1.
Right. You said 11-11-1.
Okay, no, 11-1-1.
Okay.
Forget the 1. Let's forget. That's what's throwing you off.
Yeah.
Forget the overtime
You
loss.
said 11-11.
11-1. You're 11-1.
Yes. So that's great.
So that's good.
You win all the time when you're 1-goal games.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's the good side of it.
Yes.
Or is there a bad side of it that says, you know what? A lot of these games are close and can go either way.
Only 11.
I guess
100 goals. There's 100 games in a season. 11 of them you were 1-goal games. That's another good. I think that's a good stat. It's not like there's 81 goal games. 11 out of how many games we played? 36. You said before.
So
all right, one third of the games is 1-goal game.
Right, but you're finding ways to win them.
Yeah,
a couple bounces here the other way, it goes the other way. So the Rangers respond tomorrow night. Hopefully, they'll be home versus Chicago, and I would expect them to respond. That, by the way, is a really good ticket. Connor Bedard. I was actually talking about this with my son this morning and driving him to school. We were talking about Connor Bedard. Instead of studying for whatever academics, that's the type of parent I am right there. We talk
learning stats.
That's exactly what we were doing. Connor Bedard's first game is tomorrow night at the Garden, and that is a good ticket to see. But again, the Rangers, you can't take last night and go crazy about it, because every time they've had a game like that, they respond the next game. Until they don't do that and they don't respond, and it becomes a trend, or it starts to be like, I don't want to say a free fall or a problem, then we consider and talk about it. I'm not going to really, go crazy about that. So they will have Chicago at home tomorrow night. They will then go to Montreal Saturday night, and they will play at home versus, I think, might be the best team in the league if you want to take the Rangers out of the equation, and that's Vancouver.
Okay.
So there's some really good games coming up here for the Rangers in the next 3. You have Connor Bedard tomorrow. Saturday night hockey in Montreal is always awesome.
Yeah.
And then home versus Vancouver on Monday night. So Yes.
Are we about halfway through the season?
36 games, 81. Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, so you
41.
You just said other than the Rangers, Vancouver is one of the better teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about halfway through the season. Do you want to make a prediction for the Stanley Cup Finals? Halfway.
Do you want me to make a Stanley Cup prediction? I see. Here's a okay.
It doesn't have to be Stanley Cup. You want to see like top 5 teams midway through the season?
Yeah, we could do that. I don't.
No pressure.
I have a problem picking the Rangers. Just I always do. Even if they were 82-0, I would have a problem. I just can't do it. Like
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, someone said to me. Someone said to me last night at my son's soccer game. That they bet on Carolina last night because they thought they were due to win. I'm like, it's a good bet, but I can't touch Ranger games.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I would say the Rangers are there. Vancouver is there. Vegas again is very good, right? Same team. Edmonton has now won 6 in a row. They're starting to come around. Dallas is good in the West. In the East, you saw last night, Carolina can worry you for sure. I could see a comment: Devils versus Vegas. Devils in 4. Devils would need to get goaltending by the time that happens. In the East, Boston would worry me. Of course, Florida, you saw the other day, they can play. The thing that worries me about Florida is they can win games where they're high scoring games. They can also, they have some goaltending there. They can win games low scoring. Picking teams you can put that comment up. Picking teams pre-deadline is silly. I would agree. And then we'll pull up that other comment at the bottom. For this team to be a cup contender, should we go for bottom 6 depth or third pair depth? For example, Schneider and Goodrow just aren't cutting it. So I like this comment, and Chris, I'm sure will weigh in on this. This is a good question by Matthew, so thank you for putting this in. I have never been, and I've said this, so I'm not saying anything that I've not said before.
Yeah.
And Chris, who loves this show and loves talking about this, knows I've said this, and we're going to disagree. You can pull up the bottom one. Yeah. And that is this. I have never been a Barclay Goodrow guy. I just haven't. I don't dislike the guy. There's guys on the team I dislike more, but with the contract he got, I just don't know that I don't know. I could live without him, right? Like if he's there, okay, he fits the need. Schneider is still young, right? There's things about his game you don't like for sure. I think it's a defensive liability when he's out there, but I think you can kind of control those situations as to who you have him matched up against. Chris is now weighing in saying Schneider isn't the problem on D. So to answer your question, would I go for third pair depth or bottom 6 depth? If it were me at the moment, I probably would go for third pair depth a little bit more. I mean, I think VC's done okay. He's another guy that everyone knows I don't love. But I think he's done okay. I mean, right now, Goodrow's still there. I think you have Pitlick. Like, you have guys that can fill in that third line or the bottom 6. And you may not love it, but I think the depth is there. I'd almost rather sit there and fill in the third pair depth in the event that Ryan Lindgren does something stupid and blocks a shot like he could do and get hurt, or the way he plays, or Trouba, how physical he is. Like if those guys get down and your third line or your third pair D then has to elevate in some way to your first or second pair, I'd rather have some more depth there. And everyone knows I cannot stand Zach Jones. I cannot stand Zach Jones. So if anybody puts in the comments that Zach Jones is the answer, we're gonna end the topic. So I would rather see Chris Drury find a way to trade for maybe it's another team's second pair defenseman that's out of the race, and we could utilize that guy in the third pair.
Yeah.
I would rather do that to answer your question, Matt, and it's a very good question. I would rather address that than the bottom 6. Or we could get rid of Wheeler for a winger who can quote unquote skate.
So that was my question is, with playing well and having a good season, you don't want to shake things up too much. So who would you get rid of?
I would. So Wheeler is an easy target. And again, he's someone that I've bashed here on the show. So I could get rid of him. I don't know at that price. Like if I need, he's not really hurting against the cap. I would get rid. Barclay Goodrow would be someone I would get rid of. All right, how about this? I wouldn't say I would. I would be okay if they got rid of him. However, as Dan Rosen from NHL.com, when he was on with us in the summer, said when we talked about this exact thing, no one's taking on the contract Barclay Goodrow has. You're going to have to either take some of the salary. I mean, there's something that has to go on. Wheeler, Brodzinski, or Pitlick is Nikolai's choice of guys to get rid of. I'm fine with that. I'm not sure I would get rid of Johnny Brods. I don't want to say he's untouchable because he's not, but I would get rid of maybe other people before that. And unless Jones gets traded for Monahan, which Chris wrote in, but I don't see a situation. Look, if you could trade Zach Jones for Sean Monahan, my birthday is next week. I don't ever ask for gifts, and I feel bad. I'm terrible. Like, my wife asks me all the time, like, what do you want for your birthday? I really don't want anything. I just don't, right? Yeah. That right there, Zach Jones for Monahan, would be my birthday gift. I don't want cards. Like, if anyone was going to give me a card, I don't need it. I don't. That would be my birthday gift. If you could trade Zach Jones for Sean Monahan, I'm in. I'm done.
It's not like, would you be okay with that being half birthday, half Hanukkah?
Or you could even count it for this year's 2024 Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa, whatever you want, because I can't. Zach Jones is not an NHL player to me.
Wow.
He's not. I'm just sorry. We're not going down this road. I got another topic we're going to take in a minute. All right, you ready?
Sorry, Zach.
Sorry, Zach. You send your apologies. All right. So last week,
yes,
I am in Mexico. See, on vacation. That is the extent of my Spanish. I know nothing, but that's a story.
You know numbers.
That's a story for another day. We are on vacation in Mexico. Okay. I was up early, messing around on my phone. Okay. And my kids are sleeping in the other room. I believe my wife was still sleeping. And I'm like, flipping through Ranger stuff on Instagram. And for some reason, the Instagram algorithm comes across this topic that was on the Empty Netters podcast, which I like their podcast. I've actually listened to it. I watched their clips. I like it. I think it's very good. Except last week.
Wow.
So they had a guy, and his name is Dan Powers is his name. Okay. And I will openly invite Dan Powers to come on this show, and we can debate this topic if he wants. But Dan Powers had a point. They were talking about the Rangers, and it was this, that if the Rangers win the cup at some point in his career, does that make Chris Kreider the greatest Ranger of all time? This is unacceptable. If Chris Kreider brings a cup to Broadway, which we all want him to, we all want Zach Jones to, we all want all of you people that are writing in the comments who are mad at me right now, we all want Chris Kreider to bring a Stanley Cup to Broadway. Chris Kreider can bring 2 Stanley Cups to Broadway for all I care. He's not the greatest Ranger of all time at all. If you want to tell me that Chris Kreider automatically, when he retires, number 20 is going to the rafters, I will disagree with you, but I will understand where your point is, right? Okay. Now, he should probably go, but it's not automatic, right?
Okay.
But for Chris Kreider to be the greatest Ranger of all time, can I give you a couple names to remind you of who's played here?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, is he the greatest Ranger on the team right now?
Probably not. Mark Messier, Henrik Lundqvist, Mike Richter, Brian Leach. Now, look, I am going to turn 44 next week. So there are old players that, like, we hear about historically that I can't tell you that they were better than Chris Kreider, but the way people talk about someone like Eddie Jacquemin, Rattel, or Brad Park, like, when you hear those names mentioned, they all seem better than a guy that is incredibly inconsistent in Chris Kreider, can't really play 5-on-5. And yes, as B-Rock and I were talking before the show, he can tip goals in front of the net and all goals count. I get it. But how in the world is this guy the greatest Ranger of all time? He's not even close to the greatest Ranger of all time.
I mean,
even if he brings a cup, he's not the greatest Ranger of all time. He's not the greatest Ranger on the team right now.
Yeah, that's what is. He the greatest Ranger on the team right now? And a goal is a goal, like you said, but knocking deflections in, I feel like, is low on the totem pole than someone who's juking, giving assists, and making plays.
So we have two conflicting. Why don't we I want to pull up Matthew's comment first.
We're going to
pull them up.
While we're pulling them up, put in the comment section who you think the greatest Ranger.
Well, so Matthew has a great.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Matthew.
Okay.
I can certainly see him going into the rafters and becoming one of the greats. If he wins the cup, Matt, that's fine. He can go into the rafters if he wins a cup, and becoming one of the greats. I get it, but I'm talking the greatest. No. And Chris's comment is that Kreider is the perfect player to be a member of a Ring of Honor situation, not a retired number. So that's a different pick. And again, I'm on the border, so I can go either way on the retired number. Chris is saying, no, that's fine. A Ring of Honor. I get that for sure. Nikolai, what if our screen obviously goes down here right at the wrong time.
What if the question was greatest lifetime Ranger, only playing for the Rangers for their entire career?
What if that? Well, no, Henrik Lundqvist.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say that he signed with Washington for a couple weeks and then retired. Because he did play. Technically, he never skated in a game. So if the greatest lifetime Ranger to me is Henrik Lundqvist. Top 10, as Matthew said, correct, but not the GOAT, not the greatest of all time. And if he's top 10, he's somewhere 5 to 10. Adam Graves Adam Graves was primarily a net front guy. He got the cup and got his jersey retired, and Kreider stats are better than his Ranger rise right now. Right. And Jacob,
we're not saying great. That's not saying greatest of all time.
But Jacob's point, and I'm fine with this, is that that he's similar to Adam Graves, and he got his number retired. I can live with him being retired, right? We're not pulling up Brian's comment because I see what that is. We're not doing it. And then the bottom one is Graves is up there in his community because of his community work. Yeah, that is true. Graves, a lot of Adam Graves. And Adam Graves, I've met him multiple times at different events. When people tell you he's a great guy off the ice, it is 100% true. Nice. It's actually like 150% true. Wow. He's that good of a guy off the ice. But in no way, shape, or form does this original 6 franchise with their history or storied history, if you want to go there, because you can sit there and say, oh, they only won the 5 cups, whatever. Yeah. In their storied history, is Chris Kreider the greatest Ranger ever?
So let's look at, because like we said, is he the greatest Ranger on the team right now?
No.
Okay.
He's not.
How long has he been on the team of the Rangers?
He made his debut in the 2011 playoffs versus Washington.
So 10 years he's been a Ranger. So this era of Rangers with Panarin and Zibanejad has lasted, what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, but you also have so Kreider played his first 5 years or first 6 or 7 years.
That's what I'm getting at. So we're in the Zibanejad, Panarin era, and Igor era. Before that,
he had Lundqvist. Who was better than him.
Okay. Before that.
When he came in, Lundqvist was there.
Besides Lundqvist,
who else would have been there?
We're talking about like 8 years.
The first half of his career, the only Ranger that I would say is higher on the list of all time would be Henrik Lundqvist, because I'm not. If anyone in the world thinks Ryan Callahan or any of that nonsense is going up, Brandon Dubinsky, no.
So for the 10 years you've been a Ranger, you weren't even the best player on the team
ever at any given time.
Exactly.
Because when Henrik left in 2017, and no, Chris McDonough's, we're not even putting that comment up. McDonough's not up there. When he left in 2016, or 2019, Lundqvist, 2020, COVID year. When he left, you already had Igor on the team, and you had already signed Panarin, because Panarin signed on July 1st, 2019. So if you told me right now who is a better player, who would I rather have, Chris Kreider or Artemi Panarin? I'm taking Artemi Panarin. I don't mean that as a disrespect to, we just talked about for 20 minutes how good Panarin's stats is, right? Yeah. I mean, but to tell me that Chris Kreider is the best Ranger of all time is insane. And if Dan Powers wants to come on, he can come on any Tuesday when we go back to our Tuesday slot, and we'll have him on. He can pick his Tuesday, and we can debate the reasons why he thinks he is the greatest Ranger of all time.
I think you should give him an official invite right now. We'll
pull the clip. Well, no, I'm sure B-Rock and those guys are going to clip this stuff. I'm sure. And people will be into it, because they were really into last week. We talked about, like going to a Ranger game by yourself. Look, the people that comment on our stuff are great. They get so passionate about it. But I don't understand how anyone can argue to me. And again, here's what's fair. Where I have to be full disclosure is his argument is not today is he the best Ranger. It's if he wins a cup. But if he wins a cup, to me, he's still not the best Ranger.
Yeah, there's Rangers that have multiple cups, right?
Is he winning the cup?
Who's got multiple cups?
On the Rangers?
Yeah.
No one.
No, not now. I'm saying lifetime, like in the history of the franchise.
No one, because they won it in 1994, and the time they won it previously was 1940.
Okay.
No one was still on the team 54 years later.
Yeah,
they retired. They retired. So Leach goes before Graves, and I'd even say, yeah, I mean, there's just so let's put up Jacob's last comment, which is, I don't think greatest Ranger ever. You see the Jacob right there? There we go. I don't think greatest Ranger ever, definitely top 10, probably second best skater. That's a lifelong Ranger behind Leach. I don't count his last 2 seasons as a Leaf for Bruin. Yeah, and I'm not counting Brian Leach's career, those 2 years either. I would agree, and he's got a ton of speed, and he's fast, and he's top 10, but he's not even top 5 to me. So to make an argument that he's top 1.
What's separating? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What's separating? Because we're having the Kreider of all time. What happens when Zibanejad or Panarin win a cup?
They're not greatest Ranger either.
Why
would they? Why?
But my point is, you would say that they're better than Kreider is.
Yes.
So why does he get to? Why does
he elevate? That's fair.
Why does he get to jump these 2?
That's fair. Now, is Mike Keenan the greatest Rangers coach ever? That's a good question. That's a good question. So it's hard to answer that, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, and it's the bigger hand,
mm-hmm.
he coached 1 year and won the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So you're 1 for 1, right? But the sample size is so small that he coached 1 year with a very good team, with a very good goalie, and he had Messier and Leach and Graves and Kovalov and all these guys that and McTavish. It's hard to say he's the greatest coach ever because the sample size is so small. I don't even care. I'm not even saying that with he left and went to St. Louis, and it's, I don't even care.
Why did he leave?
Because it was a money issue. He wanted more money. And Neil Smith, who was the general manager at the time, didn't. And it was crazy that, you were just here, you just won the Stanley Cup, and 6 weeks later, you're now in St. Louis.
Yeah.
It was weird. I was 14 years old. I remember very well. But so is he the greatest coach ever? I don't.
Well, how do you do that next year at St. Louis?
Not well. But he's one of the better coaches. I mean, he's had success. He's coached in Calgary. He coached in Chicago for a while. He coached in Philly. Mike Keenan's a good coach. I mean, there's no. Is he the greatest ever? But I don't know. In fairness, if I were to tell you no, because the sample size is no, I don't have anyone glaring out. I mean, am I going to say John Tortorella? Am I going to say Alain Vigneault?
Well, based on our conversation now, it seems to be more difficult for hockey. Unlike, you have a Bill Belichick who just dominates a division.
No one
for 20
dominates.
Years. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's not like the
Hockey
Rangers run a dynasty 3 in a row. You know what I mean? It's tough in hockey where that's that doesn't really happen.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I would say, and I don't want to go down this road. I'm just going to say this, but if we look at stats, which you're going to do with Mike Keenan, because that's the argument for Mike Keenan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's the greatest coach ever, because he's not. Mm-hmm. But I could look at Gerard Gallant's 2 years here and tell you, if you look at his stats, he had a pretty good win percentage. But he definitely was not the best coach ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know what happened, right?
Yeah.
No, he's great. Similar resume to Laviolette, but Neil Smith assembled a great roster, and with Keenan demanding style, he brought out the best. Yes. And one thing, Jacob, with that team, if you ever read the books, I forgot the name of the book, but there's a great book about the inside, the Rangers 1994 team.
Okay.
If you ever read it, a lot of it says how much Messier's leadership influence helped Keenan. Keenan almost had an assistant coach who was his best player on the ice, which helped him. I mean, to his credit, he doesn't get penalized for that, but he also had that helping him. But is Mike Keenan the greatest Ranger coach ever? That's a good question. It's hard to answer when he was the one player or the one, he had 1 year here.
Yeah.
And Torts didn't have half the roster. See, that's another thing. Torts didn't have half the roster that Keenan did, which is true. But John Tortorella, and I like John Tortorella.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't like him that much that I root for Philly now, but I have always liked John Tortorella. Mm-hmm. But if you remember with the Rangers, and Chris, who wrote this in, certainly remembers because it's his favorite player of all time, and Dan Girardi, John Tortorella's style was, I've got Henrik Lundqvist in goal, who's in the elite phase of his career, right? He wasn't even in the downfall of his trajectory. And he's got guys like Ryan McDonough and Dan Girardi who are out there blocking shots. Dan Girardi was setting records for block shots in the season by a defenseman. I mean, that was the style Torts played.
Here's one way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people at home can participate. If you were to make greatest Ranger team assembled, so best goalie, best center, best right wing, best left wing, and you make this team, would Kreider make that team?
Would Kreider be So maybe the better. I
what
like
position
that.
Does he play?
He's a left wing.
Okay.
So is Chris Kreider the best left wing? That's a good question. Is Chris Kreider the best left winger to ever play for the Rangers?
You're assembling your super team, and you're putting all these pieces together. Who are you going to have at center? Who are you going to have at left wing? Who are you going to have at right wing? If he doesn't make that starting spot, then how can you say he's the best Ranger of all time?
Yeah, I don't know. So is Chris Kreider? So in recent memory, Chris Kreider to me is the best left wing I can remember. Well, you have Adam Graves. Wait a second. So I think or Chris is saying Panarin, which is a fair argument. I don't know. That's a very good question.
You can't make that team. You can't be the greatest.
Right. You can't be the greatest of all team of all time if you're not the greatest at that position. Right.
Yeah. We're not even saying like you versus Igor or Henrik.
Yeah. But
we're not even talking about different positions. Are you going to be the best in your position?
Forget about Igor. Forget about Igor and Henrik for a minute. And Henrik probably is the answer. But you still have Mike Richter has to be in the conversation, right? He played his whole career there, right? He didn't play anywhere else. Mike Richter played his whole career, won a Stanley Cup. And there were times, and people forget this, and I always think when I say this, I always think back to 1997. The Rangers played the Devils in the playoffs. Devils had home ice. And the Rangers won the series in 5. They won on a wraparound goal in Game 5 by Adam Graves to eliminate the Devils. Mike Richter played at a level in that series which I still think might be the best I've ever seen a goalie play in a single series. It was unbelievable. They literally stole that series in 5 games because of Mike Richter. I'm not saying that Mike Richter is better than Henrik Lundqvist, because if I had to gun to my head who's better, I would say Henrik Lundqvist. But I'm just saying Mike Richter would be in the conversation as well. Mike Richter is a better Ranger than Chris Kreider. Henrik Lundqvist isn't even close.
Yeah.
I don't say that disrespecting Chris Kreider, because I'm not saying he's the worst ever either. He's probably top 10. Chris Kreider maybe is number 9 or 10 on the list. And I also don't know the players that well before 1994 or 1990, I guess, when I was 10. So I'm forgetting I can't tell you how Rod Gilbert was or Brad Park or Eddie Jockeman. I can't even factor those guys in to take them out. But
you got to get this guy on the show. Have a debate.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get Dan Powers on the show, and all of you guys that are commenting can jump in, because it's just, While we have everyone here, we'll add an extra topic. Trade deadline. What does everyone think? Because now that when the calendar turns, right, and you go from December and you get out of this freaking holiday stuff finally, and the calendar turns and we get back to living our normal non-holiday life, the trade deadline for the Rangers is 7 weeks away. What I would say is this. I said this to someone the other day, and I don't remember who it was, but I know I said this. I want Chris Drury to find this year's Frank Vetrano, find this year's Andrew Kopp, find me that equivalent. There is nothing major that I need to have. You're not going to go out and trade for a star. That's not really filling the needs of the team. What do you realistically want Chris Drury to do? Is it a positional need? Are you sitting there, like Matthew was saying before, and am I looking to fix the third pair D? Am I looking to fix the bottom 6? Or am I being more specific in saying I need a third line right wing? Philip Hedl is probably not coming back, right? Let's just be realistic. At this point, if you think Philip Hedl's coming back, I don't know what inside information you have. It would be a bonus. So am I trading for a third line center, knowing that Trocheck has obviously done fine on the second line with Lafreniere and Panarin? So am I trying to add depth at center? What is it I am trying to do? So they need scoring depth, maybe third pair defensemen, no fancy names, need playoff scorers or Glenn Anderson, so to speak. Excellent point. We're on the same page. That right there is it. Maybe you get a third pair defenseman that's not named Zach Jones, no fancy names, and need playoff scorers. Yeah. Or Glenn Anderson is a great example. 1994.
This goes back to what we were saying before. Who are you going to give up? Because you have to give up something. And also, a superstar coming in just for the playoffs, I feel like shakes things up too much. There's egos. There's you don't want some, you know what I mean? Who's getting first line? I don't think it benefits. I think you got to keep your core intact and just try to fill in some gaps.
I don't believe off the top of my head that there are like Patrick Kane last year was a rental, right? Like a big name rental that was out there. I don't think that's there. The Ranger fans, not the Rangers. So and there's a big difference. Ranger fans talk a lot about getting Vladimir Tarasenko back from Ottawa, which maybe can happen. But I haven't read anywhere that like it would even like Ottawa shopping him or the Rangers are interested in him. Usually you would hear something that would make you think that it's somewhat feasible, not even that it would definitely happen. We haven't even heard that. So realistically, Sean Monahan, pipe dream Lindholm, that would be good. We need a top line with a right wing that stays longer than the end of the season and a playoff run. Now in terms of who you give up, Johnny Brzezinski, I guess, would be some like if I was an opposing GM and I called Chris Drury in the offices of Madison Square Garden and I said, "You want this player from me? Okay, here's what I want in return." What would I be asking for that I know Chris Drury would be willing to part with? I mean, you could give me Zach Jones and I'll pay his United Airlines ticket out of here. I would do that. So I'm not sure you're not going to give up anything substantial. Barclay Goodrow's contract is not getting taken by someone at this point in the season either. So that's not going to happen. So I don't know. I don't know what you're giving up. Yeah. So stay tuned on that for sure. We got to switch gears to football. We did 45 minutes of hockey. By the way, I want to say something before we do that. Oh, yeah? We listen to people in the sense that when people give us negative feedback, we take it into account. Or positive. Yeah. Constructive criticism. We'll leave it at that. We've had people complain, and the reason I want to address this, because it's the time of the year to do this, is New Year's resolution, right? Near you. We've had people complain, as well as someone as recently as this morning who wrote in on to us on Instagram about this, that when we go over to football, they turn off the show. Really? So what we have done today is we have given you 45 minutes and 58 seconds of hockey content, which is usually we're done with the whole show by now. We have extended it. And if you don't like football and you don't like when we cover football, guess what? Now's the time. But no. Football's ending. Yeah. Because once we get into the last week of the regular season, there will be no Giants and Jets stuff to go through. True. And we will cover the Super Bowl and we'll look at these things. Maybe we can get Jeff Sheesby back on the show. Yeah. But we are listening to the feedback to make it more hockey, I don't think it was ever overwhelmingly football. No, it's always been overwhelmingly hockey. Yeah, and then you just give your picks. I would say it was 80% hockey, 20% football. Now we've switched it. It's like 90 to 10. And we do it to correct me if I'm wrong. We do it to keep it interesting. It's a lot easier to bet football. It's a lot more interesting to bet football. It's almost impossible to bet hockey. Yeah. And another good point, and again, we'll pull it up. My biggest gripe is that there's so much football I can be watching on TV at any time of the day. Yes, especially this time of year with the bowl season. It's amazing. But we give you the good takes. We give you the good takes. But if you listen to us for hockey, which I'm sure is the majority of the people, you will be happy to know that with football ending, it's going to start switching soon to 100% hockey. Yes. And I believe next Tuesday we have a legitimately really good hockey guest that you guys will all like. Nice. I mean, and if something in another sport happens of relevancy, we're going to talk about whether it's, baseball or basketball or tennis or whatever. Like ping pong? National ping pong, cornhole championships. If something happens worth letting you know, we're going to let you know. We will cover it. But just to recap, Chris Kreider is not the best Ranger of all time. So we'll do that. So you can bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Get ready for NFL games this weekend, which is the final week of the season, believe it or not, of the regular season. And there is an enormous AFC East showdown Sunday night on primetime between the Buffalo Bills and Jeff Adelson's Miami Dolphins. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 160 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problems gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. Yeah, buddy. Okay, so before we get to the picks, did you see this Brock Purdy MVP thing? Yes, that was I think it kind of died down a little bit. No. The actual bet slip. What happened? Speaking of gambling, no. B-Rock, did you see this? It was a glitch.
Did I miss a glitch?
No, you didn't.
You always get the glitches.
No, I didn't get the glitches. So this guy,
yeah.
I guess there's a website out there. I forgot the name of it, where you can sell a bet that you have.
Yeah.
Like, right. You could sell a bet.
I saw this. Yes.
You could sell a bet that you have.
Yes.
So in the beginning of the season or before the season, someone bet 100. They bet some amount of money that Brock Purdy would win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And the payout for this bet slip, if he wins the MVP, is $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he now, a couple weeks ago, Brock Purdy is long favorite to win the MVP. It's like minus 625, I think. He is literally sitting tight to win $200,000. He decides to go on the site and try and sell it for $100,000. So if you believe Brock Purdy is not going to trip or tear an ACL or something, you spend $100,000. I will give you this bet slip. And a couple weeks later, you cash it in for $200,000.
Smart.
Right? Smart.
Very smart.
Somebody makes him an offer for $90,000 and he turns it down.
Wow.
As far as I know, he didn't sell it. Now he's done. He's done. Because Brock Purdy's not winning the MVP. It's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
It ain't even close.
Yeah.
So this guy, could you imagine if you bought? Now, look, I don't have $100,000. I'm just going to blow anyway. Yeah. But
someone did.
But someone was willing to spend $90,000, which at the time, I guess. I mean, well, I shouldn't say I guess it made sense.
Got money to blow.
Well, he got money to blow, but it makes sense, right? Yeah. He's a long favorite. There were 3 weeks left in the season. Now, Brock Purdy had that horrific game last week versus Baltimore, which his odds plummeted. Yeah. And Lamar Jackson has only skyrocketed because he won that game, and then he had 5 touchdowns this weekend versus Miami, who's now definitely – I mean, he's not even going to play this weekend. So he's definitely going to win the MVP because they're not going to hold that against him that he sat out. So now you had a $90,000 offer. You turned it down.
Greedy, man.
You asked for $100K. Someone offered you 90, and now you're going to get nothing.
I would have taken it. Greed, man. I mean, like – that's just like it's a no-brainer. You're getting the safety and security. Yeah, you might win an extra 100,000, but like things can go wrong, and things went wrong.
Yeah, and the NFL is weird right now. There is not one team that is like the favorite in my eyes.
The Eagles just lost the Cardinals.
Yes, there's no one. Well, the Eagles also now probably lost the NFC East because Dallas was the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and that's that controversy is crazy to me.
Yeah,
the Detroit Dallas. I mean,
we
have all this technology. If there's a discrepancy, New York needs to be on the line at all times, 24/7. The New York referee office that they always go to. They need to be on the line 24/7. And like, if there's any type of discrepancy, just call it time, like pause the game for a second, go to the technology that we have, go to the video footage and make a correct call rather than rushing it. And now look, now, this totally changed the landscape of the playoffs. And a lot of people are pissed.
By the way, can we pull up Antoinette's comment? Because I love it. Because even though we switched to football, but it's right in line and it's not the language. But for those, we were talking about Brandon Schneider before. Thanks for writing that in. That is, I would agree with that. So it's amazing that the guy turned down $90,000.
Yeah.
He was asking for 100, got a 9, and now he's going to get nothing out of it. Because no one's buying that.
It's greedy, man. You should have taken it.
It's almost like you wonder if he knew something. Like, why would you be selling a bet slip that had at that point in time was minus 625?
Yeah.
So it's not a sure thing, but it looked promising.
It was smart to put it up. It was definitely smart to put it on the website. Now, like, use your other brain cell to take the money and run.
I want to go look through that site because I'm sure hopefully there's lower priced items that you could buy.
Who wants my bet slip for Jets Giants Super Bowl?
Yeah, you have that. You still have the Jets. You have the Giants Bills.
Giants Bills, Jets Giants.
But in the NFL, like going into the playoffs next week, there is not one team like Kansas City. All these teams, even San Francisco lately, like all these teams that there's no one that is like you think, wow, they're definitely going to make the Super Bowl out of their conference. No, it's completely up in the air. I mean, Miami got blown. I guess in the AFC, the favorite has to be Baltimore, right? Baltimore just went into San Francisco and won. They rocked the Dolphins. They're going to have home field. Yep. Brian's comment. Yeah, Baltimore would probably be that. In the NFC, like you have the 49ers, you have Dallas, you have the Eagles. I don't know. I mean,
Detroit, man.
Detroit is a good one. I mean, like Detroit just plays hard, right? Like if you're gonna eliminate Detroit, you're gonna earn it. You know, I don't know. I mean, and the other thing with Baltimore and the AFC, you still have Kansas City there. Like you want to bet against them. Browns are a sleeper. Brian says. I mean, that's there's just Buffalo. Like Buffalo can get in there and win. If there's no team that Buffalo can't beat on any given Sunday, they're not consistent, right? It's just hard. And what happens if you're playing Tyreek Hill and he has one of his games where he has 261 yards and 2 touchdowns? I mean, how are you going to beat that? And Jalen Waddle and those guys. So it's just wide open.
Yeah,
which will make it fun.
There's like 8 teams.
Yeah,
that could definitely win. Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs are always
now
the
NFC South winner, which I believe at the moment is Tampa, will not win. Like we can write that off, right? Yeah. As a matter of fact, Philly, if the playoffs started, they don't have a home game, but they go to Tampa, they'll win that game, right?
Yeah. So NFC, you got Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers, Detroit Lions. Those are your 4 teams that could easily. And Rams are making a comeback.
Right. I wouldn't count against Sean McVay or Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp.
And then AFC, you got Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens. Browns are on a hot streak.
Yeah.
And the Jaguars or Colts are going to sneak in there.
Yeah. Right. Whoever wins that division.
Yep.
So I don't know. All right. So we did picks we didn't have a show, but we did do picks. And as usual, we were horrendous. Just throwing it out there. We were gonna, when we're wrong, we don't hide from it. We had the Lions +6 at the Cowboys. That was the only one that hit. We had the Commanders +13 home versus the 49ers. They lost by 17. We had the Falcons +3 at the Bears. The Bears blew them out. We had the Bills -12 at the Pats, and we had the Dolphins +3 at the Ravens. So we were 1 for 4. So believe it or not, we are at the last week of the regular season finally. And here are our week number 18 picks for Mind Your Pucking Business. I like the Titans +5 home against Jacksonville. Jacksonville way too inconsistent to me to be giving 5 points as a road team, so I'm taking the Titans +5. I like the Pats -2.5 at the Jets. It could be Bill Belichick's final game. He hates the Jets. Let him go out by beating the Jets and also improving the Jets draft pick. So I'm taking the Pats -2.5. I like the Eagles -5 at the Giants. The Eagles at this point they will still be in the NFC East race when the game starts, because the Dallas game doesn't start till the same time. The Eagles are going to come out, try and win, hope for a miracle. -5. The Giants aren't playing for much. Give me the Eagles -5. Give me the Panthers +5 versus Tampa. The Panthers, I don't know if you saw, their owner threw a drink at fans the other day. It's a total mess. They got to end the season in some way, shape, or form on a positive note. I don't really think Tampa's that good. +5, give me the Panthers. Sunday night is the best game of the week. I feel like we need to take it. I'm confused on the line. Dolphins +3 at home versus the Bills. I'm taking the Dolphins +3. I think it's more of a pick 'em, but I'm taking the home team. If they're getting points, I'm taking the Dolphins +3. So the final picks of the year, finally, I'm taking the Titans +5 at home versus Jacksonville, the Pats -2.5 at home versus the Jets, the Eagles -5 at MetLife against the Giants, the Panthers +5 at against Tampa, and the Dolphins Sunday night +3 at home versus the Bills. Got it?
Yeah, I don't like the only one I don't like is your Panther pick.
Yeah,
Buccaneers aren't terrible. Panthers are terrible. You think Buccaneers are gonna win by less than 5?
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
Stay tuned.
That's the only one I don't like.
You might be snowed in Sunday to find out. You will be finding out.
We'll find out.
We will. By the way,
speaking
of betting and finding out, I'm still owed an iced tea.
I will make sure that doesn't get to you.
But we could, if you no, that's fine. We could, if you would like, do a double or nothing bet. Not with that game, but we'll pick something that we disagree on.
We also have
maybe the playoffs. Yeah, maybe we'll do.
I'll get you your iced tea.
Well, I think we should do it where, like, when the Super Bowl comes in 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I think we should do it where, like, if we are in different takes, like, let's say I like the team getting 3 and you like the team giving 3, whatever it is, I think we should do like an MYPB bet.
Sure. Absolutely.
And we'll give away prizes.
Absolutely.
We'll give away something.
Nice. And
like a final
in the
score
comments section, you can choose if you're Team Doug or Team Jeff.
Yeah, but we'll do I think what we should do is we will do it where I have an idea. So we'll probably do it where, let's say, argument's sake, you had the Ravens and 49ers.
We'll use the Panther one right now.
Well, the Panthers and Tampa wouldn't be a Super Bowl. I'm saying, here's what I'm saying.
But we're going to do this in any day that we have a discrepancy.
We're going to say to people, pick the score, pick the winner in the score.
Mm-hmm.
If you get it right exactly, you'll win something. But we'll have to limit, like, yeah, but we'd have to limit because
the first
you get
three.
70,000 people commenting if that happened, and then you're giving away 13,000 hats.
No, it'd be the first three.
And the people at Bamboozle Project like that. I mean, for them, they're sponsoring it, right? They love it. He's living on a beach somewhere in Cali, wherever that guy is, right? Yeah, he is. That's where he is, right?
He's in Cali.
Yeah, he's living the dream off MYPB hats. But I'm saying we'd have to limit, but we'll do some form of a contest. We're like, and we'll get other people involved.
You're probably going to be Wednesday in like 2 weeks.
Yes.
So you'll definitely, because like normally on Wednesdays I have morning meetings and I bring like Duncan to the studio. I'll remember to bring you a special iced tea that day.
Thank you. It would be in my honor. I will wait for that. I'll cherish that iced tea. I forgot. What was it? We have to look back at what the bet was. Oh, it was. I know what it was. It wasn't even close. It was Bears won. +7 at Washington on a Thursday night, and the Bears won by like 30.
Are you sure it was that game?
Yeah.
I know you blew me out.
It was
like Washington was on a hot streak.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Bears to win +7.
+7, and they won by like 25.
Like Washington's gonna win. But that more than so.
It was fair. All right. Well, we thank everyone for listening today. An incredible live audience. We thank you guys for putting in your comments as usual. And again, Chris Kreider is not the best Rangers ever. Just want to throw that in there. We thank the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship as always. You could check them out at thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20%. We thank DraftKings as well. We will be back on our normal time on Tuesday, should be next week. And if all goes according to plan, we will have a very, very good hockey guest. All of you guys who do and gals who do live comments on our thing, we will give you the opportunity next week to ask him a live question. I will do that. We will take a few if we have some time. And this is now, said, and our last show that we ever did, episode 136, which was taped in December of 2023, was our longest show ever. We have now eclipsed that today. We are over the hour mark for the first time. So you wanted more hockey content? You got more hockey.
You got it, baby.
If you're in the Northeast and you get snow this weekend, as they're saying we might, stay safe. And we will talk to you next week.